Well, it's the next morning and I'm going to take all the clamps off this. The fan's running in the background there and it may squeak from time to time, so if you hear that, that's what that is. Sorry about the noise, but it's hot in here. Well, let's see what our next step is. Off camera, I spent quite a bit of time cleaning up these edges and dyeing things and making it match, and it looks pretty good, but if you get up close you can certainly see it. But from any little distance away it doesn't look too bad, I don't think. Keep in mind, I'm totally colorblind, so I just do the best I can. Sometimes that's good, sometimes it's not so good. I'm going to try now to fit this bridge. Now this is going to be a challenge because this is a very uniquely arched thing right down the middle. There's like a tall ridge right in the middle of this thing. And the middle of the bridge is already sitting on that and the feet are off the ground, so it's rocking back and forth. Let's see what we can do with that. So I have some 220 sitting on here and I've got the bridge there, and I'm just going to work it back and forth lightly for a little bit, and hopefully I can see where it needs to be cleaned up. It's touching right here on these two middle points. So I'm going to take it over to the spindle sander and knock some of that down and see where I go from there. Well, quite honestly, that helped a little, but only a little. I'm going to try it again. Actually, I'm going to put the saddle back on there. That keeps the posts in the same orientation by using it with the saddle. I'm also going to try to lean it back just a fraction. And that really is only a fraction. I hope everybody understands. I'm not trying to get a big lean toward the back. I just don't want it leaning toward the front. Well, that looks better. Quite a bit better, in fact. See if we can keep going with that for right now and see if that will just go ahead and extend on out. Before I get confused here, I'm going to write a T right here for treble, and I'm going to write a B over here in case one of them gets erased for bass, so I know which way this has to go on there. It's definitely not touching at the ends, so I think I'm going to go over to the spindle sander again and just touch it up a little bit more just to try to speed this up. Yeah, I knocked it down quite a bit more, and you know, I'm basically just lining it up with the old scuff mark here as I do this, so you know, just trying to keep it approximately where it used to be. And you notice I'm not moving it very far, I'm just working it a little bit. On one that's this weirdly shaped, going forwards and backwards would probably be a good way to do it, and I do have one of those little jigs to do that, but honestly I don't like that method, and I really don't like that method at all. It always seems to round off the bottom of the bridge, and I want the bridge to be flat, and this keeps it good and flat. Well, it's still got a long ways to go, according to this. There's that much to go there and that much to go there. We're about equal, so like I said, this is one of the most oddly shaped tops I've ever seen on a mandolin, and I've seen a lot of them. So I'm going to go back to the spindle sander and try to speed this up some more. Well, setting it on here after going over to the spindle sander, it's still, and I've gone over there twice, by the way, since I turned the camera off or back on. Yeah, it's still quite a bit off the top on both ends. I really never have seen one with such a high arch right directly in the middle like this. It's really super high. This is more to get it back to the perfect shape, because when you do the spindle sander you really can't control the shape very well. You just do what you think you need to do to knock some of the highs down, and that's all I did. But this will smooth those highs back out, and smooth everything back out actually, and it's starting to look like it's getting close. So let me look at it now. Well, it's not terrible, it's just not good yet. It's actually starting to show a little bit all the way up to the edges now, which is good. I keep grinding this middle out so it doesn't touch. That's kind of the standard way. And man, I have to keep grinding and grinding to keep that from touching because it's almost touching again. Yes, it is definitely uniquely made. Well, I'm gonna go try some more grinding. Ground on it pretty hard that time, hoping to make some good progress, but I gotta be honest, I don't think it's quite there yet. It's close. I think we're the closest we've been, but we're still a ways. You can see it's pushing it out to the end now, which it hadn't done that before. And it's kind of doing that on the other side, but not as much. I'm going to put a little more pressure on the other side here, on the base side. That looks a lot better. Yeah. But if I'm being honest, it ain't there yet. It's mostly on this base side. So I'm going to work on that some. Well, I checked it and it's pretty close now. So hopefully this will bring us to the rest of the way. I really don't recall one with this much shaping required. That's getting pretty close. It's still not down on the ends though. I'm going to try holding the ends down a little bit as I do this. Well, I don't know, I'm about to give up. I would give up if it didn't keep improving. It does keep improving slightly, but man, this is a tough one. Taking so much off this bridge, I'm curious where it lines up now. Well, it's about a 30-second low at this point. Of course, it's all the way down, and of course, there's no strings on here, so the strings are going to be up higher, and so it's going to have to go up quite a bit. But it's always been too low, so hopefully this will fix that problem. Man, it seriously has got issues. I think what I'm going to do is go ahead and put the strings on this, get the intonation approximately right. I'm just going to very lightly put on the strings, but I am going to try to get the intonation fairly close, and then I'm going to use the string pressure to help me do the final little bit of sanding. Well, before I string this up, I've decided I want to work on this truss rod. You know, the nut on this was so rounded off, and it's brass. You know, brass nuts are fine, it's just that they're kind of soft, and they do round off fairly easily. I've got some little coupling nuts here, and I'm just curious if one of those will fit it. That one looks like it fits it. The only problem with that is it's going to stick up high. It's too long, of course. I can cut it off and make it smaller on my metal lathe. That does seem like it fits it though. I think it fits it pretty well. Actually, now I'm beginning to wonder if it actually does fit it. It's kind of acting weird now. I don't know. Maybe it's just the fact that it got this so tight. Well, the threads look fine, so I think it fitted okay. I think the problem is that there's just no space in here. Well, I think I'm going to create a little more space with my Dremel tool because it's just an awkward situation, and we gotta make it where it works easy, and it doesn't work easy right now. I think that'll do the trick, actually. And it looks better in my opinion anyway, because it's more uniform. Let's see if this will go on here now, and see if I can get a wrench to turn it. I don't know if that's the right wrench. I think that one's the wrong one. Yeah, this is the right one. But even that's still a little tight. One of the reasons these nuts get rounded off is people can't get anything on them correctly, and that's part of the problem.
The other night I woke up from a dream. This dream to me so really seemed.
Alright, so I'm going to go to my metal lathe and turn this down if I don't already have one. Sometimes I have one of these already turned down. Let me see if I do. If I do, that'd be awesome. Here, it looks like I do have a couple here. They look bigger though. Here's another one. I got 3 of them here, and they're all bigger that I've turned down. Do I have any more? Sadly, I'm just going to have to go make one out of this little short stock here. So we'll go do that. I've set my compound slide to slide at 22.5 degrees. I don't know if that's right or not. I'm just kind of guessing. It's trial and error a little bit. I think that will make it a 45 included angle, and I don't know if that's what I want even, but I'm going to test it here and we'll see if that looks pretty good, and if it is, we'll go with it. If not, we'll make a change.
And in this dream I came upon a man who left no footprints in the sand. Dressed all in white, we walked along the way. For those in need, we'd often stop and pray.
Well, that almost looks better than perfect, so I'll go with that. First thing I'm going to do is take a little file. I'm just going to round off these ends just a little bit. This is a little dangerous, so you got to be careful with this.
Our journey guided only by the night, and yet we walked as if there was a light.
It doesn't feel too sharp, so I guess I can go with that. Now I'm going to turn this around and do the exact same thing on the other end, and then I'll cut it in half, and then I'll have 2 of them, I hope. I hope I have enough room here to do that. I think I do.
Then he said, walk the straight and narrow every day. Then he said, head straight toward the light and never stray. Then he said, lend a helping hand along your way. Then he said, find the love of God on Judgment Day.
Just looking at it by eyeball to see if it's about the same length, and that looks pretty good, so I think I can go with that. Now I'll round off the ends again. Feels good. It doesn't feel sharp, so I guess we'll call that good enough. That's all we have to do over here. Well, actually, I'm going to take and saw this right down the middle with a little tiny bandsaw. That might be a real problem. Well, here's how I'm going to attempt to do this. Now, I haven't ever done it like this before, but it seems like it ought to work. So here we go. Bingo! That worked. They're hot, but that worked. Now I'll probably put them back in the lathe and face these off, but I'm not going to film that. I'm just going to put them back in the lathe and smooth the ends of them off. That way I'll know they're square and straight. Well, hopefully that footage turned out in the other room, and you saw me make these 2 little nuts from that one long nut. This one's just a little bit smaller, a little bit shorter, so I'm going to use it. I think it'll be the one to fit in here the best. I'm going to see about putting this stuff back in here that was in here already. Quite honestly, I'm not sure that's going to work. The problem with my truss rod is, and I'll be honest, is it's sticking up a little higher than the other one did. Can I get it to go down any? I'm not 100% sure, and that's the truth. I just don't know. I'm wondering if I can force it down a little bit. I'm actually putting the longer nut back on here because I think I'm going to try to maybe bend the truss rod down just a little bit if I can get it to do that. Except that I can't even get it to start threading on there right now. Because this overlay comes out over the truss rod area, they have a spacer in there, and that's what they had in there originally. Now I did file it down just a little bit to make it fit in there better right now because my truss rod sits a little bit higher than this one, than the old one did. That's kind of a good thing though, because you can get a wrench on it now, where before you couldn't get a wrench on it. And let's see here, I'm just going to try to get a washer on here. Now I don't know if the washer will get in the way of the truss rod cover or not. I hope not. Hope it stays down low enough. And nope, it's going to get in the way, but there's a smaller washer here, so I'm going to try that. Yep, I believe that one will work. So now we'll put the nut on here if it will thread on, and that would be nice. I may have to go chase these threads on the back side where I cut it off and smoothed it out. I think the threads got a little bit bent over. Not like they're not bungled up exactly, it's just that lathe work on there causes that to close off a little bit. So I'm probably going to have to chase these threads out. So I think I'll go do that off camera. I'll just run a tap through these threads and then I should be good to go. I can see that the hole is just a teeny bit oblong there, and that's because when I faced that off, it pushed the threads down a little bit. So I just got to run a tap through there. It's not a big deal. Well, I didn't turn the camera on in time, but I did run the tap through that nut, and I did put it on here, and it's working just fine. I'm just trying to tighten it up now. Actually, that doesn't fit it. I thought it did. I need to go to the next smaller one, I think. I hope this one fits it. Yep, it does. Well, that's good because it gives me more room to get it in there and tighten it up. And it's just barely below the surface of the truss rod, so that's all I need. As long as it's below the surface, I'm good. Well, I got the truss rod cover on there now, and it's looking pretty darn good. I think we're ready to try to string this thing up, so let's try that. Well, I started to put the strings on here, and then I got to thinking, you know, I'm really rushing it again. I really should level these frets and recrown them, because after you take a fretboard off and put it back on, they're probably not perfectly level anymore. I can feel a couple little high spots, like there's one right there. Yeah. It makes sense that the high spots would be in the middle, since that's always been low. So anything that would have happened would have been on the ends, and the ends would be lower. So that actually makes perfect sense. But it's not far off, so it's not going to take much. Well, that's going to be just about it. Now I just got to round them off and clean them up. Well, I already off camera re-crowned the frets with the little crowning file, and I also sanded them with the 600, and they look real nice. Look like brand new. So now I'm just going to clean up the fretboard. You've seen me do this a bunch of times, so I'm not going to show the whole thing, but I just thought I'd show you that I'm doing it, and I'll show you what it looks like and when we get the strings on it. Okay, and then the final step here is to put a little bit of this Be Good oil on this fretboard. And I say a little bit, I put way too much, I can tell you that already. That stuff drips out so fast. Don't need near that much. On these little tiny frets, I'm going to need something to slide it around here, so I'm just going to use an old brush. Get it down in the cracks and get it all the way down by the frets and stuff. Just go back and forth a couple times like that, and that works it in really well. Once you get it worked in, you really don't have to wait much time. You can just go ahead and wipe it off. Well, that looks pretty darn good. I guess now I can finally do this. Now I still don't have the pick guard on, and I know that, but that's okay. We don't have to have a pick guard on to do this. I'm kind of anxious to see how it plays and sounds and all that good stuff after all the work. Plus, I want to still do a little bit of sanding on that bridge. I'll show you what the next step looks like here in just a minute. Well, I've got the 2 strings on there, with just a moderate amount of tension, and that helps keep this tension down on the bridge while I'm sanding it. And I'm just going to try doing a little bit more sanding like this.
Not one of us on earth can understand just how our life fits in the master's plan. We must learn to lend a hand along the way, so we may find the love of God on Judgment Day.
I think that's gonna just about do it for this thing. Just about as far on that as I can go, I think. Let's put some more strings on it and see what it's looking like. Well, I am having a little bit of trouble getting it to fret out and note right, and I look down it, it looks like there could be a little bit more underbow in there than it needs, so I'm gonna see if I can tighten that up. I've loosened the strings, by the way. I've got her pretty darn tight now. I don't know if that's gonna be enough or not. I'm seeing a little bit of a hump right in here, and that's what's fretting out on me when I'm trying to note the 12th fret. So I may have to actually do a little more leveling in this area and fan it out. That's probably what it's going to take. I'll show you whatever I do. Well, it looks like I am going to have to do some more work right in here.
Then he said, walk the straight and narrow every day. Then he said, head straight toward the light and never stray. Then he said, lend a helping hand along the way. Then he said, find the love of God on Judgment Day.
That looks pretty good. It looks like there's a teeny bit of fall away now, which is what it needs.
Walk the straight and narrow every day. Then he said, head straight toward the light and never stray. Then he said, lend a helping hand along the way. Then he said, find the love of God on Judgment Day.
Hopefully that'll make the little bit of clearance that I needed. What we'll do is we'll set the strings back up in place, get the bridge back up there. I'll show you what that looks like here in a minute. Well, as I was tensioning this up, I'm starting to notice there's a problem. I'm having to lower the bridge, lower the bridge, lower the bridge, lower the bridge. It's the neck. The neck joint is coming loose. Oh my gosh, are you kidding me? I'm seriously telling you, that's a heartbreaker. I did not think the neck joint was loose before. It did not appear to be, but it is definitely loose. That really just deflates my whole thing here. Oh, what a shame, what a shame, what a shame, what a shame, what a shame. Yeah, I couldn't get nothing to work. I'm trying to figure out why, and now I know. All right, so I think I showed in my video, a day has gone by, so I don't remember what I ended with, but I think I showed that this neck was coming loose. Bummer. Oh, I am so upset about that. And let me tell you why it's coming loose, or at least why I think it's coming loose. The person that reset this neck, I think, I'm not for sure this happened, but I think the person cut this tab off. And I'm almost positive that's the case because there is a tab here, and that tab is about the thickness of this back, so I'm pretty sure he cut the tab off. When you cut that tab off, you have just destroyed at least half the strength in your neck. And you might say, well, why don't guitars have that then? Why do, if it's important on a mandolin? The difference is your leverage. Look how short this is here. You got 8 strings pulling on this. And that little tab adds a ton of strength to your leverage factor. When you don't have that tab, now all you've got is that lousy little joint right there. That's it. That's the whole thing holding all your leverage. Just that little tiny joint. You add that on there and you've strengthened your joint and you're strengthened your leverage by at least 50%. I'm almost saying you've increased it by 66%, which would be 2/3. The point is, we pretty much got to start over. The only thing that I can salvage out of this was my truss rod. I'm going to probably have to take the wedge out now and reset the neck, and there's no point in having a wedge in there if I've got to take the neck out, so I'll probably take the wedge back out, even though that'll take me longer too. I'm going to handle it as I get to it, and I just don't know for sure where I'm going with this yet. It's really a sad deal to get this far, and you might say, well, why didn't you know that it was loose? Well, it didn't look loose, it didn't feel loose. But when you get 8 strings on there pulling tight, it's loose. Maybe the customer didn't know that, or maybe they told me and I forgot. I don't remember the customer saying that they thought the neck was loose. They did tell me the neck had been reset. But anyway, it is loose, and we are going to have to do it over. Bummer. I am so bummed about it. Well, I'll show you what my next step is here in just a minute. Okay, because we know we're into this now, and yeah, I could take this back off. That would be no problem. But before I even go to that, because this neck is so chowdered up along here anyway, as you can see from whoever did it the first time, what I'm going to try to do first is, granted, I know this is going to create a lot of ugliness, but on the other hand, it's pretty ugly and it's not level, it's not smooth. So I'm going to cut all of that away, all the unlevel, all the unsmooth. And what I'm trying to do is uncover what's there so I can see what I'm dealing with. Because I don't like working on stuff that's been worked on. And I want to see what the joint looks like. I want to see if I can, maybe I can determine the kind of glue they used. I don't know. All of these things could be a good clue for down the road. You might be asking yourself, how are you going to fix it? How are you going to fix this fact that the tab's been cut off? Well, I have an elaborate plan for that, and I've used it before and it works. So I'll show you that plan as we get to it. That part I don't think is going to be a problem. I think I can handle that. So I've got most of the heavy stuff cut off of here, and I don't really see much yet that I can go on as to what's going on. I'm actually kind of hoping that just cutting away all the glue buildup and stuff, that I'll actually see more movement in the neck. And I do see a little bit, but not very much. Based on what I'm seeing right now, the glue that they use doesn't look like wood glue to me, and it doesn't look like epoxy. It honestly looks more like something like a model airplane cement, but I don't know that for sure either. In my opinion, it already looks better, even though it's discolored and things. At least it doesn't have all that glue buildup and junk there. But quite honestly, I don't see much that I can go on. I was hoping I'd see more movement. I don't see enough movement to care about yet. I was actually hoping I might be able to get the neck out without taking it all apart, but I think that's wishful thinking. Now, I'm trying to decide underneath here if they wedged this up, and I kind of think they did. I don't think that wedge that's way under here is factory. I don't know if you can see it. I'm not holding it very well for the camera, but there's a wedge back under here that's an extra piece. And I'd say that whoever did the neck reset did that also. Probably trying to think that would help them with their neck angle. Fingerboard off. I'm probably just wasting time. Probably just gonna have to take the fingerboard off immediately. But I was just hoping, against hope, that I might get lucky and might get it to come loose without taking it all apart. And that would be awesome. There's a lot of glue here. I'm actually pulling glue out from under the neck. There's a lot of glue. I mean a lot of glue. That's actually all glue that's pulling out of there now. I don't know if you can see that or not. All that is glue. It's just piled up glue that's in there. When you pile up glue like that, in case you're wondering, it adds no strength value at all to anything. The only way glue is strong is when you have a tight joint and the glue is very thin and evenly covered, and then you clamp it well. Then your glue is very strong. Ironically, when you put on a lot of glue and it's real thick and built up, it's got almost no strength at all. And this is really thick and really built up. Just as an example, that piece right there, that's just glue. There's no wood or anything, that's just glue. And there's a lot of that under here like that. So this, what I'm thinking is a wedge. I do think it is a wedge, but it wasn't a full-size wedge, and they filled the cavity with glue. And it doesn't look like that's going to open up for me any better though, even though I'm getting all this glue out of there. I don't think it's going to change much. It might. I'm going to still wiggle it around a little bit more here after I get the rest of this glue out and see if it wiggles some more. Boy, I can, even now I can barely see any kind of movement. And that's after I know it's loose. Honestly, can't see much movement at all. Before I put the strings on there, I didn't see any movement. And even now, I can only barely see any movement at all. And it's only because I know it's loose that I can actually see the movement. Well, no point in fretting about it. No pun intended. I'm just going to have to take the fretboard off of it. So let's get started. Well, in my vlog for today, I mentioned I'm going to cut a dovetail in here, and I'm going to put a flat piece all the way across from this heel through into the dovetail, lock these two things together. The grain will be running this way, so it'll be very strong. The only hesitation I have, and it's just a hesitation, is that it looks almost like there's been some kind of work done right there. It's hard to see it, and I don't know if the camera will pick it up. But right there, there's kind of a bump. And it almost makes me wonder if somebody's not already put a dowel pin or something in there. And then yet again, I see another little kind of a bump shaped thing right here. It looks like it's into the wood down in the under the finish. I don't know. You never know what you're going to get into when you start these things, but I really do think this is the way to fix this. I don't see any other good option. Every other option is going to be real expensive. This won't take me very long, therefore it won't be too expensive. I'm going to start by trying to get this heel off of here. Now that I see that again, I see another thing that looks suspicious. It almost looks like there's already two heels on this. It looks like there's a seam way down here, and then it looks like there's a seam right here. And then of course there would also be a seam right here where the plastic is. So there's 1, 2, 3 potential seams that I see. That's kind of weird, and I'm pretty sure they're there because I can see it on this side too. Now this seam could just be as innocent as adding some wood onto this heel when they made it at the factory. But this one is the tab that would belong to this. So that's where I want to separate it, is at this tab. I want to get this tab off and basically replace it with my tab. Trying the scalpel here because the blade on it's a little tougher than the X-Acto knife. Trying to at least get a line started that I can follow where I won't be getting off into other areas. That feels like that's working. I could use my saw on this, but the problem with using the saw is it doesn't necessarily follow this seam, and it could wander off a little bit, and I'd prefer not to wander out of this seam, though it could happen with the knife too. I feel like I've got it cut pretty good already, at least into the area. Now potentially I could heat this up, but by the time I got it hot enough to really make a difference, I'd be melting this, and that may not be an issue. I think I'm probably going to replace this anyway, so I don't think I care about the melting there. I probably won't have a plastic heel on this when we're done. It'll probably just be wood. But I don't know that for sure either until I get it done. I'm getting in there in places, but I don't know that I can get it to pop off with this chisel yet. Might be able to. Oh, it did. There you go. Look at there. So we got lucky. All right. Now, it is got a lot of glue in here, and I can even see down in this joint that there's just lots of glue. So it's probably just like I said, my suspicion's probably correct, that they just didn't fit this all up real well, and they just poured glue in all the holes and just expected the glue to take care of the problem. That's never going to work with glue, not with wood glue anyway. It might sort of kind of work with epoxy, but epoxy's pretty brittle, and even thick epoxy would probably break under this kind of pressure. There's a lot of glue here, so I'm cleaning this down to bare wood. This is lots of glue. If you see what's coming off there, there's no wood coming off, that's all glue. And I want to get it bare wood to bare wood. So I'm going to take off as much as I can get off here till I start seeing wood coming out of there. Kind of sketchy. I'm not sure why there's a big hole there in the heel of that either. It's kind of weird. Didn't expect that either. I have a feeling there's just all kinds of sins going on here. Whoever took this apart probably had all kinds of issues. There's a lot of glue down in this hole, so I'm just going to try to get some of that out. Well, it's just like I suspected. It's been filled up with a lot of glue. There's a big hole that goes back in there, as you can see. And that's not good. This is loose. The disappointing thing for me, because of the way I want to fix this, is that this is not perfectly flat. This is all cut out in here. Why that's happened, I have no idea. That makes no sense to me at all. Why this is all cut out and lower and everything. And the reason that's a problem for me is that cuts out surface area. I wanted all of that surface area there so that I could glue my fix across here and make it work. So I may have to actually cut this out, fill this all in with wood first, get that clamped up, then put a patch across it, because I can't have these big open spaces and expect it to hold. So what I think I'm going to do, because there's so much glue mess in there, is I think I'm going to get the router out, my Dremel router out, and lightly go through all that glue and try to clean all that glue out of there.